Hi, and welcome back to my kitchen. Today, it's the outdoor kitchen, and I'm super thrilled to be out here because the next page in our taco manual is to show you guys how to make the full-blown carne asada taco feast. So first of all, we got to talk about meat. I went to the Mexican grocery store and got this meat, which is the ribeye. This is for special occasions. It's the thin-cut ribeye, but some of you might want to do skirt steak. I love both of these steaks. And this is the outer skirt, the tender one. If you get the inner skirt, it's a lot thicker and it's usually butterflied and a little chewier. So you choose what great meat cut you want to use for making your carne asada. Because there's so many flies out here today, I'm going to get rid of this. I have a little refrigerated drawer and I'm going to get that away while we make the marinade. Those really thin cut ribeyes are almost impossible to find in a regular grocery store. So if you don't have access to a good Mexican grocery store to find them, my recommendation is that you stick with the skirt steak. Now, marinades in Mexico tend to be very, very simple. And just remember, if you have a very acidic marinade, don't use it more than just a topical marinade because it will give you that mealy texture in the meat. So I'm going to make one that's a little bit acidic here, but it's going to start with a good amount of roasted garlic. I roasted garlic in a pan here, which you do in the papery skin. And you cook it for 10 to 15 minutes over a medium heat, and you'll see some splotchy dark bits on there. But once it cools off, you can just peel off that papery skin. And then I'm going to put all of this garlic, this is a whole head of garlic here, into the blender jar. And now for acid, I've got two different things. I'm using a really beautiful unpasteurized apple cider vinegar. So that's going to go in here. And most people don't think about it, but Worcestershire sauce, which is that umami punch, is also quite acidic. It has vinegar in it. So we're going to put that in there. And then oil, and I'm using olive oil here now. Okay, our next thing is chipotle chilies because I want this to have that sort of smoky, spicy marinade quality. So I'm going to put in here 4 of these chipotles out of the can. That's all up to your own discretion. If they're really big, you might want to put 3 of them in. I put 2 small ones and 2 large ones. And then all of this really delicious canning liquid, which is a tomato base, again, with a little bit of vinegar. A few tablespoons of that will go in here. And then for a little bit of sweetness, because I like it, I'm using agave syrup. You could use honey for this, but a couple of tablespoons, and I'm just going to eye that. Okay, let's talk about that agave syrup that I put in the marinade. You would rarely see that in Mexico, but I kind of like it. But you have to be aware that if you like that flavor, it's going to make that marinade a little stickier, so it will stick more on the grill. You'll have to clean the grill between batches of searing the meat. Okay, now back to the recipe. And then we have our spices. Well, I'm going to put the salt in here before. Now, marinades should always be salty. If you can eat them off a spoon, they're not going to do what you want to do to the meat. So I'm working with Diamond Crystal salt here, and I'm going to put a tablespoon of that in with it. Now let's talk about the spices to go in with this. Like I said, most of the marinades in Mexico can be very simple. They could just be lime juice, garlic, a little bit of salt, maybe some pepper. But in this one, I'm going to go sort of full on, and I'm using about 1.5 teaspoons of thyme that is going to go into my mortar here, and I'm working with thyme that is the whole seed. I said thyme and I meant cumin. About the same amount of black pepper, because I love black pepper. And then the last thing is going to be Mexican oregano, and about 1 tablespoon of that. will go in there. And this is my favorite little tiny molcajete that I don't ever do wet things in. I use it just for spices, and I keep this at easy access next to my cooking area. I'm going to turn this into just a powder. Wow. This just smells so incredibly delicious. Okay, so those are going to go in there. Turn the blender on and blend this mixture until it's an absolutely smooth puree. Okay, now for getting this on to the meat, I'm going to put a latex glove on, and then we'll get the meat out that I'm going to use today, which is the one that's the ribeye. And let's just get it all over here in this marinating dish. This beautiful, look at that, it's just so beautiful. And then that's probably going to be enough of that. There'll probably be a little tiny bit left over there. But then you can just work each piece here to get it covered completely with the marinade. Just rub it on, turn it over, get them stacked all up here with the marinade on them. Okay, get rid of this glove, and this over here, I no more than about 15 minutes or so with this marinade on there. I'm going to cover that so the flies don't get to it. And now let's go ahead and talk about the knob onions and the cactus paddles, which are super classic in a carne asada cookout in Mexico. The first thing that I want to do is to spray them all very generously with oil. You could use olive oil. You could just use regular vegetable oil for this if you wanted to. And then I'm going to sprinkle them all with salt. I'm going to take that back over to the grill. So follow me over to the grill that I've got heated up already. And let's just set these guys down here and get them on. I have the grill heated to the hottest section over here, and this side is very cool, okay? Because I know that these onions are going to need to cook with the bulb end toward the hotter part of the fire, and then the green part of it away from the fire so that they cook evenly. It just takes a lot longer for those bulbous ends. Now, remember that they need to be seasoned here, and I'm going to sprinkle some salt over them here on the grill just to get it started here. We may want to add a little bit more later on. And now we've got these oiled cactus paddles. I didn't talk about these very much. In most Mexican grocery stores, you can get them already cleaned, and that's what I have done here. But if you buy them in a place that doesn't have cleaned ones, you're going to need to use your knife and go in there and get those little nodes off of there. I always go the whole circumference around the nopal so that you can get rid of any little spines that you might not be able to see. Okay, so we're going to cook these guys now I'm going to cover it up. We're going to cook them sort of medium-high heat until those knob onions are tender all the way through. The greens will be wilted, and then I'll turn the nopales every once in a while until they lose that bright green and go to an olive green and clearly are sort of limp. They're going to look like they're cooked through. And I'll show you what that looks like when we're ready. Everything is really looking beautiful here. You can see that the cactus looks nicely grilled. I've got a rack over here on the sheet pan because I really want these things to cool off completely before I cut them up. That will ensure that they don't have that sticky stuff that nopales are always known for. I believe that all of our knob onions, they look really good. They feel tender when I try to put my tong in them. So we'll take those guys off. You don't have to worry about spreading them out. They can stay bunched up here. And then just get them all off the grill. And I'm going to let these cool off for just a minute, and I'll show you how we're going to prepare them. These have cooled down now to about room temperature. It's amazing. If you've never had grilled nopales, they're my very favorite. Maybe you've had the cactus salad that's made with boiled nopales, and maybe it didn't impress you. It's one of those things that you almost need to be raised eating, but I love to grill the nopales. If you haven't ever had them before, just know that they have a nice crunch to them and a little bit of a green bean quality to them. And then once I get all of this chopped up, I'm going to be ready to grill the meat. I am going to sprinkle the nopales now with a little bit of salt. And we're going to go to the grill to do our grilling of the meats. Okay, first things first. I like to oil meat before I put it on, so I've got my oil sprayer here. And I'm going to take some pieces off the top here and lay them oil side down onto the hottest part of the grill. Now this meat is going to cook really, really fast. That's why I'm doing it on a hot part of the grill here. And I want to get a nice, it looks super tender. I want to get a nice char on it before I flip it over like that. Remember, there's a little bit of honey in this marinade, so it very much will brown quickly like that. But just a few seconds on each side is enough. And now this is going to go onto a rack that is over my half sheet pan here. And I'm going to let this cool off. We can reheat it, so that's one of the nice things about doing this. You could be just grilling this right before you serve, or do it before your guests arrive, and then just put it in the oven and reheat it. I've got another couple rounds of this to go before I'm ready to chop it up. Okay, last piece is coming off of the grill. That final moment when everything comes together. I'm going to show you how to cut the meat, or how most people would cut the meat for making tacos, into small pieces here. Now remember, because these are small pieces of meat, meaning thin pieces of meat, it's not going to be your rare or your medium rare, but that's why you want to go for a good cut like this ribeye for something like this, because it will give you that beautiful taste, that deep, rich, beefy taste. So once you get all of this cut up, I'll show you how to make my favorite taco. Okay, we're down to the last piece here. My recommendation is that just before you're ready to serve, cut the meat up and pop it into the oven to warm it just a little bit. Lots of things are kind of room temp in this kind of a beautiful spread here. Of course, we've got the knob onions and the nopales. I've put some rice out because I always like to serve that when we're making tacos, and some black beans with a little cotija cheese on top of it. A very simple guacamole. We've got our meat here. I'm going to show you what my favorite one of these tacos is. I keep going back and building the same one over and over again. I like to put a little bit of guacamole in the base. Now this is doesn't have a whole lot of of condiments in it. It's a very simple one. A little touch of black beans, and then I like to put the meat on, and then I am going to lay those down there. I'm a salsa verde fiend here, and I love the crunch of the nopales. Put those on the top there. Carne asada, taco fiesta.